Hello, I'm Bruce Berrickman with Bay Mediation and Arbitration Services. The rest of the people on this video are also neutrals and mediators at Bay. We want to share with you some observations we have from having performed at this point several and many video conference mediations, and want to kind of give you our view of takeaways and observations we have from those mediations. And I want to start with Scott Young. Scott, if you could share an observation or two.
I would love to. Having done, I don't know, 6 or 7 of these in the last couple of weeks, one of the things I've noticed is it is helpful when you have multiple parties on the screen like you see now, if each of the participants would hit their mute button and actually mute their side of the equation. The problem is if you don't do that and somebody coughs or somebody starts to say something like we typically do in conversation, it'll cut the main person off. So it's a good idea to do that, and it's real easy to flip back and forth, and I think that'll make things run a little bit smoother for everybody.
Thank you, Scott. Now, Tanya, I know you've done several, can you kind of add some observation takeaways that you have from those that you've performed?
Yeah, I think one of the main things I would tell lawyers, and obviously have them tell their clients as well, is to treat the mediation day as if you were in person. Set aside the time, be prepared to be at your computer as long into our everyday life come the end of the day, and we lose some momentum. So just make sure you set aside all day until it's time to actually conclude and hopefully have a resolution at the end of the day.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate you sharing that with us. Now, Scott Hoffman, if you could share some observations, that would be great.
Right. One thing I found is that some of the attorneys tend to be concerned about whether or not their clients, particularly in a workers' compensation case, can get on. What I've had most of them do is get on via their cell phone. And we've found that it's very easy, it's very simple to follow the instructions from Zoom. You may have to adjust the privacy setting on your phone, but otherwise it works very well.
Okay. Thank you, Scott. I think that's a very good observation and helpful to all of us. At this point, I'd like Marcy to share her observations from the mediations she's done.
Thank you, Bruce. So from the mediations I've done, I've found that, first of all, it's very important to get everybody's cell phones prior to the mediation to make sure that if there are any issues connecting, the parties are able to contact the mediator and to be contacted by the mediator to help get them onto the Zoom platform. It's also been helpful. I had one person that asked me to get on prior to the mediation the day before just to make sure that they would be able to connect, and that worked great, and it put them at ease that they would be able to join on time the next day.
Thank you, Marcy. I think those are helpful, and that's helpful information. Going to move to Michael Braun now and ask Michael to give his observations.
Certainly. Thank you, Bruce. Mine is more just a proponent of the program itself rather than an observational tip for doing the mediations. I've been really impressed by how seamless the software is, that it's so easy to be in a room, to have conversations with your client while you're in the room, have the adjuster come in, go out, come back in, and so forth. It's almost as though you're doing a mediation live, and it's really just been impressive and easy to work with that way.
Great, thank you. Victor, let's go to you now.
Yes, one of the things I want to take what Scott said about muting your microphone while you're not speaking is that when you are muted, you can temporarily unmute your microphone by hitting the space bar, and it allows you to jump in and out of conversations and still keep your microphone muted until it's sort of your turn to say what you're saying, like I am now. Several other people have made comments that I was going to make. I do want to just say, generally speaking, I've now done a lot of these, and I'm just very, very impressed with the process and with the technology. I will say that it is, to me, maybe more efficient. I think an argument could be made that it's just as effective, but it's also very efficient. There's no time walking down the hall. The host or the mediator can go from one room to the next room with the click of a button. It's just worked out super well. The other thing I would say is that, we talked about this a little bit earlier, is that sometimes the technology doesn't work. And if it doesn't work, don't panic. And I think what, in addition to taking Marcy's advice and getting cell phones beforehand, it might even be a good idea to mention to the participants as you get started that, look, the technology is really, really good, but there's a chance because of Wi-Fi connections, et cetera, that you get dumped out of the meeting or the meeting gets cut off. No one should panic. You can still jump right back on by going back to the link in the email, clicking back on it, and the host should be back on. And if not, we can use the cell phones to call each other to tell what to do. So that would be my 2 cents on this.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Now I'm going to move to Doug Witten and ask him for his observations.
Thank you, Bruce. I would say that just like in-person mediations, your nonverbal communication is so important when you're mediating through Zoom video. And this is sort of a next level point maybe that I found to be useful for participants in terms of their actual negotiation and persuasion skills through video. So remember that when your camera is on, people can see your facial expressions and they'll be focusing on those expressions on their screen. So keep that in mind. And obviously your whole body isn't on the screen, and we're used to reading body language in mediation, but on screen, we're just seeing your face. And that's what we as experienced mediators and advocates need to be reading and observing. And because we're not able to shake hands and be in the same physical space over video, we're reading a lot through your eyes and what your facial expressions are telling us. And also be aware of the tone of your voice when you're mediating remotely. Though what we can see and hear is slightly different over the video, just be conscious of what you're conveying as you would as if we were in person. So speak clearly, make sure your audio is functioning clearly, and be mindful of what you're conveying through your actual words as well as your tone.
Thank you, Doug. Those are some great suggestions. At this point, I'd like to ask Henry Quillian to give me his thoughts and observations about video conference mediations.
Okay, well, thank you, Bruce. Well, just remember, this is a person-to-person communication tool. A lot of people who are not lawyers or not used to being recorded may think it's sort of like a TV show or some sort of performance. Well, actually, it's just people communicating with people, as Doug mentioned. And so every means of communication, including hand language, could be effective. You can also put your video on off even while you're within a room. So if you want to get up and move around and don't want everybody to see everything you're doing, you can simply click off the camera and it'll just show your name on the screen so that you can move around and not be seen in your full glory, as opposed to just having your face right up with the screen.
And one of the things I've noticed in the mediations that I have is that it has amazed me how quickly people seem to forget they're on camera. You would think they'd be nervous, but all of the ones that I have seen, they have gotten accustomed to being on camera very quickly, and it hasn't bothered them at all. And they really get the sense, in my mind, that they're in person and that we're sharing things person to person as if we were together, because just like everybody has said, you can so easily see each other, hear each other, and you're very close to each other from the standpoint that you're screen to screen, camera to camera, and it looks like you're right there with each other and you can read each other well. And that's why I say it's very important that all of the participants, if possible, be on video so they can see you and you can see them and you can communicate easier, better, and they feel a better sense of credibility and connection with the neutral when they can see the neutral and talk with the neutral. Now, I would like to go to Art and ask Art to share his thoughts about video conference mediations.
Well, one thing I'd like to add, Bruce, and everybody's made great comments so far, but you have, typically, in a non-virtual mediation, you may come in the morning and pull the mediator aside, if you're a counsel, and discuss a few, issues with the mediator privately. For instance, if you have certain client relations issues or client sensitivities to certain matters, those types of things. And while that certainly can be done in a virtual mediation, think ahead. It may be better to pick up the phone and call the mediator and have that discussion in advance of the Zoom mediation. It just is easier that way. But that's just a little bit of forethought and planning with some of those things can help.
And one thing that I do as a mediator is I will let everybody know a day or two ahead of time that I will actually open the video meeting 30 minutes to an hour ahead of time, and I will actually put people into breakout rooms before the opening session and have a meeting with them in that breakout room, just like I would if we were in person, before we go into the main session, and ask them if they want to share things with me, if they want to talk about things ahead of time before the main session, and what they want to cover in main session. And for instance, with plaintiffs, whether the plaintiff wants to make some kind of presentation, the plaintiff themselves want to make some kind of presentation in opening session, or they don't want me to ask them if they want to make some kind of presentation. I think the main point that we want to get across is that it's easy, it's effective, people have accepted it very well, it's worked very well, and I believe people feel like that it's almost just like being in person, and it has gone over well, and I think it will continue to be accepted by everybody and more people. Anything else people want to add? Well, thank you all very much. Yes?
If I can add, the one thing I don't think we've touched upon is if you have documents that you want to share during the mediation, a lot of times it would be helpful to send those documents to the mediator in advance, even if you don't want them reviewing it beforehand, just to say these will be used at mediation, so that if you have any issues sharing them at mediation, the mediator has them at their fingertips. And also, if there are going to be documents that you want or videos that you want to share during the mediation, to have those open on your screen so that you can easily access them during the mediation, and they're right there to be able to be shared.
And that's a good point, Marcy. And one thing everybody needs to know is you can share your documents with all of the participants, whether it's photographs, PowerPoint presentations, videotapes with sound, anything you want to share, you can share that on your screen, and all of the other participants can hear it, see it, and hear what you have to say about those documents or anything else you're showing. I appreciate everybody listening to this video. Hopefully it's helpful. If you need any help on utilizing Zoom in video conference mediations, just contact Bay, and we'll be more than happy to provide you with any training to make you feel comfortable in using video conference mediations, and we certainly look forward to providing you with all the alternative dispute resolution needs that you have. Hope you have a good day. Please be safe, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Bye.